Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Simon. Today I'm joined with Rachel, Neha, Edward, and Alfonso. And today we'll be speaking briefly about the benefits of effective leadership communication. So, effective leadership communication, the name implies its meaning, in fact, essentially. You need to be an effective leader, and your communication skills are very important for doing this. Your audience is a very key focus that you need to focus on, and to communicate effectively, you need to be able to convey what you're saying to them. They need to be able to understand what you're trying to convince them of. And essentially, you need to be able to persuade them. And to do that, we conjured up 4 powerful techniques that we'd like to discuss today, starting with connecting with the audience, followed with authenticity, call to action, and storytelling. And these 4, in a nutshell, as you'll learn later throughout the presentation, they're very essential for conveying what you want to convey to your audience. And by doing so, we feel like you'll gain a better appreciation for what an effective leader is and how they're able to effectively communicate to the audience. And with that, I'll send it over to Rachel to take it away.
Thank you. So today I'm going to talk about Brené Brown. She is an author of 5 New York Times bestsellers. She is a professor at the University of Houston, and she studies vulnerability and shame. One of her biggest strengths, I find, is connecting with her audience, and she has a few tools to do that. And I'd like to start by showing a short clip to demonstrate one of those factors.
You can't say, here's the bad stuff. Here's vulnerability, here's grief, here's shame, here's fear, here's disappointment. I don't want to feel these. I'm going to have a couple of beers and a banana nut muffin.
Okay, so as I mentioned, she does discuss some heavy topics like vulnerability and shame. These are topics that many of us would naturally shy away from. So one of her main techniques is to use humor when she's talking about it, and it really helps the audience kind of lighten up a little bit. A second technique that she uses is polling the audience. So oftentimes throughout her presentation, she will ask the audience to raise their hand if they've ever experienced this before or had this feeling before. So that's another key way to engage with the audience. And thirdly, what you don't see is after the laughter dies down, she turns to the audience and says, I know that laughter. That means you've been there and you've experienced this before. You've been there with those couple of beers and a banana nut muffin. So in that way, she's able to make the audience each audience member feel like they are the one she's directly talking to. And so these are some really important tools that effective communication strategies for leaders to make sure that they continue staying engaged with their audience. Another technique is authenticity, and Neha's going to talk about that next.
Thank you, Rachel. So for those who do not identify her she is Indra Nooyi. She is the former CEO of PepsiCo and also nominated as one of the strongest and most powerful women in business for the last 5 years. But let's see why she has been nominated that way.
The moment where you learned that, like, you were down and then you learned that.
In PepsiCo, there's a flagpole where you just get off from the car because you can't park right next to the building. And then you have to walk up a long driveway to get to the building. And all the other buildings are around you. And Steve Reinerman, who was the CEO before me, said, I have a piece of advice for you. On your worst day, when you get off of the flagpole, walk up the driveway as if you're the most confident person, smile, look up, because everybody in the buildings is looking at you to see how you feel and what you're transmitting.
So you see how she spoke about something like she went through a low point in her life, but she was able to come through it. And that is authenticity. In just those 30 seconds, she told the audience that yes, I'm a CEO, but I have been through a rough patch in my life and I did get over it. But more importantly, what she transmitted was she understands her significance as a leader, and whatever she transmits is absorbed by her entire workforce. Why is that important to me? It is important to me as a current or even a former employee at PepsiCo that my leadership understands that their actions impact me in some or the other way. Whatever they say, whatever they feel, whatever they transmit, is going to help me achieve my goals and tap my potential and motivate me to reach greater heights. And now I'm going to transfer to Edward, who's going to speak a little more about our next leader.
Thanks, Neha. So I think we all know who JFK is, but let's take a look at a clip here, and this will show you a little bit of what he does so well as a leader and a speaker.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
So ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I think those words have stood the test of about 60 years. And even with the person and the leader, we still remember him for these taglines and these calls to action. And I encourage each of you, when you're formulating a speech, to really think about, what is my message that I want to get across? And, what can I actually ask the audience to do? Because his tagline here is something that's actually stood the test of time and is really what is remembered from the speech. So if you can have that kind of call to action, it's really going to make it for a more effective communication when working through a speech writing process. And now I'm going to pass it to Alfonso to talk about another charismatic leader.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm going to talk about Barack Obama. So he is the 44th president of the United States, first African-American president in the US, and he was named multiple times Person of the Year. So let's see a short clip about his speech.
Because of what they did, the doors of opportunity swung open not just for black folks, but for every American. Women marched through those doors. Latinos marched through those doors. Asian Americans, gay Americans, Americans with disabilities, they all came through those doors.
So one of his biggest strengths is he's a storyteller. So every time that he gives a speech, he prepared before, so he understands the audience, he knows the place, and he also wants to connect with the audience, creating a story. But this story is not only like giving a speech as a president. He's bringing down a story and showing that he's a human. So he wants to empathize with all the audience, so all the audience can feel in the same way, like, hey, I'm having the same issue, or I'm having the same story in my life. So that's something that he is really good about it, connecting with the audience and making sure that everyone feels involved during the speech. So sometimes when he's giving a speech, he connects so much with the audience that he makes us laugh, he makes us cry or sing together. So that's something really good about Barack Obama, that he's a really good storyteller. So why all these skills are really important for an MBA class is because 80% of the time that we're gonna spend as a leader is gonna be communicating. It can be with team members, it can be with the investors, it can be with the customers, in general, the stakeholders. So that's why it is really important to have really good communication skills to connect with the audience. And I wanna make sure that we all remember these 4 skills as potential leaders in companies, family, or in the community. So let's repeat aloud, everyone, with me, all these skills. So the first one is connect with your audience. Amazing. Second one, authenticity. Third one, call to action. Perfect. And the fourth one, storytelling. Perfect. So thank you so much. This is Team 9, and have a great evening.